I've used a lot of study tools over the years, and NotebookLM is the first one to change how quickly I actually learn. And the reason isn't just the podcast feature everyone talks about. It's the system you build around it. So in this video, I'll show you the entire system, and you'll be able to learn a topic up to 10 times faster than it normally takes. The reason studying so much fails is that people think learning means consuming more books, more courses, more videos. But that isn't how the brain works, because your working memory can only hold a few things at once, so trying to push a 500-page textbook through it in one sitting means almost none of it stays. Real learning only happens when the material moves into your long-term memory, and that move is the part nearly everyone skips entirely. NotebookLM changes that, and the reason it works is that it only uses the material you give it, your documents, your notes, your transcripts, so everything it tells you is anchored in your own sources instead of something a model made up. That difference matters more than it sounds, because a normal AI can sound completely convincing while being wrong. And when you're learning something for the first time, you have no way to catch that. NotebookLM doesn't just answer. It points you to the exact spot in your own material the answer came from, so you can check it yourself. That sounds like a small feature, but it's the whole difference between studying and guessing, because the moment you can trace a claim back to the page it came from, you can trust what you're learning. And trust is the thing that's normally missing when you use AI to study. So before anything else, you load your material in, and that's where the system starts. And NotebookLM is free to use for everything in this video, so none of this is locked behind a subscription. You can run the entire system on your own material today. You upload what you're trying to learn, and this can be a textbook, 6 months of meeting transcripts, or the pile of PDFs sitting on your desktop. All of it at once, and there's no real limit you'll hit for a normal study load. And the fact that it takes all of it together matters, because the connections between your sources are often where the real understanding is, and a tool that could only read one file at a time would miss all of that. Now the instinct here is to start reading, but there's a better first move, and it goes against what almost all of us were taught in school. Before you read the material or sit through the lecture, you generate a short audio overview and just listen to it. This is a technique called priming, and it works because hearing the main ideas first builds a rough mental model. So when you read the full text later, you're filling in a structure that's already there instead of building it from scratch. I avoided this for years because I thought a summary first would spoil the material, but it turns out the opposite is true. Going in already knowing the shape of it is what makes the details stick. When you already know the shape of something, every new detail has an obvious place to sit, so it stays, instead of arriving with no context and sliding straight back out. And the action step here is simple. Anytime you're about to start something you know nothing about, generate the overview and listen before you read, because those few minutes change how much of the next hour actually sticks. So you let that overview prime you, and then you move into actually seeing the structure. And if you only ever took one habit from this whole video, this would be the one, because it costs 2 minutes and it changes how much of everything after it actually lands. Once you've been primed, the next job is to see how the whole topic fits together before you drown in the details. If what you're learning is visual, a process, or a timeline, you generate a video overview where NotebookLM builds narrated slides from your sources, so you can watch an abstract concept instead of just reading it. The reason this helps is that your brain stores something better when it arrives 2 ways at once, as words and as a picture. So seeing the diagram while you hear it explained leaves a stronger trace than reading the same thing twice. Then you generate a mind map, which lays out how the main topics and the subtopics connect. And this is the part that shows you the hierarchy, what sits under what, which is exactly what you need to understand a subject instead of memorizing scattered facts. A lot of people who struggle with a subject don't have a memory problem. They have an organization problem. They've collected 100 facts with no idea how those facts relate, and the mind map fixes exactly that by showing you the structure everything connects to. You can also turn your sources into an infographic, and this one has a benefit people miss, because checking whether the infographic got everything right forces you to actually engage with the material, and catching an error is one of the strongest things you can do for memory. And that fact-checking habit is worth carrying through the whole process, because NotebookLM is accurate when it sticks to your sources, but you're the one responsible for what you learn, so a quick check on anything that matters is never wasted time. At this stage, you're not memorizing anything yet. You're building the frame that everything else hangs on, and skipping it is why so much studying feels like a pile of disconnected facts that never adds up. So once you can see the shape of the whole topic, you go through the actual material, the lectures, and the full reading, except now every piece lands on a structure that's already there instead of arriving cold. And that's when you go deep. This is the stage where you stop taking the material in and start stop pulling it apart. Your brain moves information into long-term memory in two modes: a focused mode where you actively dig into the material, and a relaxed mode where it settles in while your attention is somewhere else. And this stage uses both. You generate a deep dive audio overview and listen to it on a commute or a walk, because pairing the material with light movement is good for retention, so your dead time becomes study time. And this is where that relaxed mode does its work, because you're not sitting at a desk forcing it. You're walking or driving while the material settles in on its own, and that's often when the piece you were stuck on finally clicks. But the real work is the interactive mode, where you can jump into that audio and ask the hosts questions in real time, and steer where the conversation goes, instead of just listening to whatever it decided to cover. When I send a prompt to the AI, there's a delay before it responds. Is that latency also a property of the LLM itself?
That lag, or latency, is actually a window into the machinery.
Exactly. When you see that cursor blinking or the text appearing word by word, you're seeing inference in action.
Also, how does the model predict what I'm asking?
It's not just about the math during the lag, it's about the quality of what you provide.
Exactly. The most important question is, what context am I giving the model to work with?
And the technique here is to keep asking why, over and over. Why did this happen? Why does this follow from that? Because forcing yourself to explain the reasoning is what locks it in, far more than rereading ever does. This is the step that actually makes it stick, because rereading something just makes the page feel familiar, and feeling familiar tricks you into thinking you know it. But if you can answer why, you really do. Then you pull a report and set it to the study guide mode, which gives you a short answer quiz, suggested essay questions, and a glossary of the key terms, so you can try to explain a concept from memory and check yourself against the answers it already has. The short answer format is doing something specific here, because it makes you produce the answer from nothing instead of recognizing it from a list. And producing an answer is several times harder and several times more useful than picking one. So now you understand the material, or at least you think you do. But there's still one part everybody avoids, the part that actually proves whether you really understand it. The hardest stage is testing yourself, and it's uncomfortable on purpose, because the act of pulling information out of your own head is the single most effective thing you can do to remember it. So you generate flashcards from your sources, and you go through them in the flashcard feature, testing yourself on each one instead of just rereading. The real power of flashcards comes from spaced repetition, reviewing something right before you'd naturally forget it, which is far more efficient than cramming the same cards in one sitting. So keep coming back to them over days instead of burning through them once. Spaced repetition just means reviewing something right before you'd naturally forget it, which is far more efficient than cramming the same cards in one sitting, and it's why the export step is worth doing instead of skipping. Then you use the quiz feature to generate a test across all of your sources at once, because pulling from everything forces your brain to figure out which idea applies, instead of running through the same kind of question on repeat. That part matters more than it sounds, because in a real exam or a real meeting, nobody tells you which chapter the question came from, so getting used to sorting that out yourself is the whole point. The last move is the real test of whether you know something, and it's to generate a set of slides and then actually present them to a friend or to an empty room, because the moment you stumble on a slide is the moment you found a gap you didn't know you had. So you go back, review that one piece, present it again, and you keep doing that until there's nothing left that trips you up. And presenting is the highest bar on purpose, because you can reread something 10 times and still not be able to teach it. So if you can stand up and explain it cleanly, you actually know it. That's the system. Load your material and prime yourself, see the structure, go deep and interrogate it, then test yourself until the gaps are gone. And the reason it works on any subject is that it's built around how memory actually works, and not around how much you can cram. And there's a bigger reason this is worth doing now, because AI is going to handle more of the routine work in almost every field, which means the part that stays valuable is the part only you can do: the judgment, the understanding, the ability to actually know your subject. A tool can produce an answer for you, but it can't understand something on your behalf. And a system that gets you to real understanding faster is how you stay the person in the room who actually knows what they're talking about. And the piece I'd start with is that first upload, because once your material is grounded, every step after it gets easier and more honest. Learning a subject is one skill, and finding the time to actually do it is another. So I put together a full walkthrough of automating your day with Claude Cowork, and that video is right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.